Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last session of our health promotion and disease prevention track. Unfortunately, our last day of the conference. In this session, we have Jakira, Saunders, and Payton presenting a session on learning about lead in drinking water. Jakira Saunders is the lead program manager with the Office of Environmental Resource Management at United South and Eastern Tribes. She holds a master's degree in public health and a bachelor's degree in health science. She has over 7 years of experience in program management, community engagement, and outreach. And she leads our lead drinking water project. And Ben Payton holds a BA in environmental science from Wright State University. After graduating, Ben worked for several years as an environmental scientist, testing groundwater for EPA compliance. Ben came to USET in January of 2023 with a strong background in water sampling and regulation compliance. He has dedicated his life and experience to serving the health and well-being of his neighbors and community. So thank you so much for being here, Jakira and Ben, and the floor is yours.
Great. Good afternoon yet, no, good morning. Great morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're feeling amazing. My name is Jakira Saunders. Ben actually could not be with us here today, but he's still logged on Zoom. Just a little bit more background about me. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I actually have been with USET as of January 2023 as well. So Ben and I started the same day. We are a team of 2, and we like to say we have the same brain. Sometimes we send the exact same emails at the exact same time about the same thing. And we're like, how is this happening? And we just met in January, so it's super cool that, we're always on the same page. I'm a mom. I have a 2-year-old, and I am a big lover of community engagement and volunteerism. I'm super active in my community, so I'm super grateful to be a part of this organization with USET and also being able to present to you all today. Focus here. All right, so let's go ahead and move along. So just to give you guys a bit of a background about USET's mission. So USET is dedicated to enhancing the development and federally recognized tribe governments and assisting USET members and their governments in dealing effectively with public policy issues and serving the broad needs of the community. Again, just a little bit of background about Ben and myself. Again, like I said, we have an amazing team of 2. We're both super dedicated and passionate about what we do, and I think that makes our program super cool because we're all on the same page of community engagement, outreach, and also follow that mission of USET. All right, so the purpose of our lead program, EPA actually awarded us a $1 million grant under the WIN Water Infrastructure Improvement for the Nation Act. For states, territories, and tribal nations to sample drinking water for lead in schools and childcare facilities. Interesting fact, the state level of this grant was actually awarded a few years earlier, so we're a couple years behind, but the great thing is we get to reach out to those states that have already participated in this grant to kind of figure out what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and then to evolve our program and such. Studies have shown that children can be more vulnerable to lead poisoning than adults. Lead poisoning in children can be detrimental consequences and during those early development years. Low levels of lead exposure have been linked to damage to the central and peripheral nervous systems, learning disabilities, short stature, impaired hearing, impaired formation of and function of the blood cells. So what that really means is that the impacts of lead poisoning in children typically impact their IQ levels, their behavioral health levels. There's a rocketing increase in ADHD and other things. All right, this is a video that I want to share with you guys. And I love talking, but I also am a visual person, and I think that watching videos like this will really help you guys understand the impacts of lead poisoning in all of us, really. Sound? Yeah.
Don't really like lead. You see, it all goes back to a time when we thought we could be friends with lead. In fact, lead was even popular.
Is there a way to turn that down?
Did you change yourself?
Day items like paint and gasoline. But over time, lead grew out of control and revealed a dark secret. This is lead. We don't really like lead. You see, it all goes back to a time when we thought we could be friends with lead. In fact, lead was even popular, invited into a whole range of everyday items like paint and gasoline. But over time, lead grew out of control and revealed a dark secret. It just can't stop poisoning people. So today, we've had enough. It's time to put lead to bed. That's because lead is causing a massive global health crisis, one that isn't getting enough attention. Let's take a look. Lead is a highly toxic metal and has particularly harmful effects on children. Young children absorb about 4 to 5 times as much lead as adults, and it affects almost every organ in a child's body. Even limited exposure to lead can cause damage that's devastating and permanent. So it's not surprising that we don't want lead around here anymore. What is surprising, though, is the scale of the problems that it's caused. 1 in 3 children worldwide is now affected. That's around 800 million children across the globe at risk of lead poisoning. It's not all lead's fault, though. You see, lead's usually perfectly okay being left alone in the Earth's crust. Lead still has some valuable uses in things like batteries and electronics. And if handled with care and recycled properly, it can even be possible to live alongside lead. But once lead is released into the environment, usually through people handling it the wrong way, it just can't help getting into everything it touches. Into the soil beneath us through improper battery recycling, disposal of unwanted electronics, and other industrial processes. And from the dust released by peeling or chipping lead paints. Into the water we drink, for example from old pipes that contain lead. Into the air we breathe, from unregulated smelting of lead-acid batteries and burning of e-waste. And even into some of the food and household goods that we consume. From contaminated spices to glazed ceramics, cosmetics, and painted toys. Once it's in the environment, lead lurks quietly, and its effects are insidious. Its symptoms difficult to spot. Sometimes there are no warning signs at all, until it's too late. The effects on the developing brains of young children are particularly severe. For pregnant women, lead exposure can harm their unborn child and raise the risk of a range of complications, including miscarriage, stillbirth, premature birth, and low birth weight. There's no cure for lead poisoning, the damage it causes cannot be reversed. The only solution is prevention. We need to keep lead safely away from children. We need to put lead to bed. The good news is that it's possible to eliminate the danger of lead once and for all. But this needs support from governments to ensure lead is eliminated from certain consumer products, such as paints, toys, ceramics, spices, and cosmetics, that it's used and recycled safely, and that contaminated sites are cleaned up. It needs support from industry to ensure responsible manufacturing and recycling so that lead is not leaked into the environment. And it needs support from communities to be aware and look out for lead, to safely dispose of batteries and unwanted electronics, to keep children away from industrial and recycling sites, and to seek testing and care if a child may have been exposed to lead. By working together, we can eliminate the dangers of lead exposure to children. We can put lead to bed and ensure lifelong health and a bright future for every child.
I really like that video because it talks about putting lead to bed. So, and that but I think the moral or the mission of that entire video is really understanding that it's not only a federal job or mission for them to provide that funding, but also once we receive that funding, what do? We have these particular events where we reach out to the community, educate, bring awareness, and then we also come together to determine what is the best methods for your particular community, for your particular groups. So we've already created a system, created a program as far as how we would like to do our outreach, how we plan on providing our water sampling to you all and our lead testing. But again, our goal is for you to come to us and say, hey, this is what we already know, this is what we have going on, and this is how we would like to receive that information. And here's how we would like for you guys to provide the testing for our particular community, because we understand that each community is different. But I'm just curious to know, has anyone ever heard about lead testing and as far as water sampling before? Have you done that in your community, at your home? Just maybe raise your hands.
I haven't done water testing, but we've done the swabs
Okay.
in the homes.
Okay, so swabs in the home for like maybe like dust. Okay,
Peeling
paint, okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Last I think in the schools for the water fountains in the schools.
Okay, that's testing for water fountains in schools, and that's particularly what we focus on. So is that your hometown?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Yes.
When we do our Toys for Tots,
Mhm.
when would they get tested for that before we actually?
So it's what and I think each of you named like very key points, like testing in the homes. That's super important. I mean, we all live in a home. Most homes are pretty old, especially if you're living in a on like a reservation in Indian country. Those homes are pretty old, so you definitely want to provide some sort of testing in that home, and then you can determine what other next steps you need to take. Testing in schools, obviously, as the video mentioned, children are at a higher risk of lead exposure, and the impacts of that lead exposure and the poisoning can be detrimental. So testing in the schools, especially with that drinking water, that we obviously want to encourage them to drink the water, but we want to make sure that they have clean water as well. So that's super important. And then Toys for Tots. I know sometimes families pass down toys, or sometimes we allow kids to play with other people's toys, and you never know if those toys already have lead. And through my research, I recently saw that I think they said turmeric apparently has lead in it because of the preservation, or they're like trying to preserve something within turmeric to keep it on the shelf a bit longer. So you just never know where you're finding that lead exposure, and it's super important to like be mindful of that as you're moving through your day-to-day life. All right, so what is lead? This is pretty much a periodic table that shows lead as Pb, that's the symbol for it. The atomic number is 82. Obviously, these are not things that you really need to know because we're all living through the world and we're not looking at these numbers during our day-to-day life. But I think it's just pretty cool to understand, again, back to that video, that at one point lead was a super important and key metal that we would use in pretty much everything, and now it's like something that we're finding to be a high risk metal for us. All right, so chemical composition and physical attributes. So it's naturally occurring lead is a combination of 4 stable isotopes and right there. That is a highly versatile substance that is mostly known for low melting point and is a corrosion resistance. So here's a bit of history about lead. Agricultural studies have found that lead, a naturally occurring element, has been used by human beings for around 6,000 to 8,000 years. So far back before any of us were even on this earth. I mean, just crazy to think that now we're finding out that, you know, it's so detrimental to most of us. As early as 1621, Virginia was mining and foraging this metal. Because of its highly functional properties, abundance and resistance to corrosion and ease of acquisition, lead has been used in everything from jewelry to gasoline. And then lastly, its toxicity has been studied and identified as one of the most harmful natural occurring substances in existence, which is again insane. Someone noticed something. So in 1690, the Germantown of ULM band used lead as an additive to wine and after a massive college outbreak. So apparently lead was in wine at one point, and then they realized that hey, we want to remove that. In 1763, another college outbreak in England was traced back to lead fittings and found in cider presses. The Great Gout outbreak of the 18th century traced back to wines from Portugal in 1892. It was the first case of childhood lead poisoning described by an Australian physician. And just think, like 1892 was obviously centuries and centuries ago, and we're still dealing with this today in 2023. And then in 1914, the first report of lead exposure, or sorry, lead poisoning was in America, which was not that long ago. So lead is incorporated. In the 1920s, 17 workers from the Epic Corporation, DuPont and Standard Oil died from the effects of lead poisoning. And these are workers. So obviously these people were highly exposed to lead. 1943, Dr. Randolph Byers demonstrated the long-term side effects in children. It was then found that 19 out of those 20 children had lead poisoning and survived after showing intellectual impairment and behavior disorders. Just a quick side note, I know this is one of my first conferences with USET. As I mentioned, I'm new to USET, but I attended like all of the behavioral health sessions just because I was so curious to hear like how USET as well as other organizations are working through the community and hearing what are the high risk, I guess, the high risk issues that they're facing within their community that could potentially have some relation to this lead poisoning. You know, you just never know. 1970s to 1990s, due to the tireless research by medical communities, it was found that even extremely low level exposures cause psychological defects, including intelligence, perception, attention span, language function, and possibly social function. All right, and then this is another timeline that pretty much, again, just shows more supporting data as to why it's so important to test for lead exposure and just be aware of where lead exposure is in your community. I think we covered most of these. Australia's ban was in 1914 for lead paint, which is interesting because our ban was in like 1986. So we were about, what, 70 years behind Australia. Baltimore had a recognized the dangers and regulations of lead early in the decade, which is 1930s, but there was still no ban in the United States at that time. The US enacted the Safe Drinking Water Act, which banned the use of lead in public water systems, and again, that was in 1986. Let's see, 1925, there was a lead was banned internationally, although the US was not signatory to the agreement. And then in 1970, the United States starts to ban household lead paint, which again was not that long ago. All right, so this is I have a couple. All right, so why is lead unsafe? Lead is a toxin that accumulates throughout multiple body systems. Over time, lead can be distributed to the body, to the bones, kidney, and brain. Teeth and bones can store accumulated lead as well, which was surprising to me because I'm like, even if you attempt to remediate anything within the body, it's still stored. What can you do after that? There's no safe lead level of exposure, however, it is extremely preventable. One thing I also want to know that I don't think we included on here to see, is that there is no known treatment to date of lead exposure. Or lead poisoning, sorry. Lead isotopes are the byproduct of 3 naturally occurring radioactive elements. There are 43 other lead isotopes in which are radioactive. Lead interferes with neurotransmission routes and impedes natural neutral growth. In children, it interferes with synapse formation, their neurological development, and ion channel organization. And then here are some other effects of lead exposure. So, colic, which I think was mentioned multiple times in this, joint weakness, higher probability of miscarriage, reduced fertility in males, delayed puberty in females, anemia, and lower IQ in children. The routes and sources of lead exposure. So being exposed to lead can occur throughout occupational and environmental sources, such as inhalation of particles from burning lead based on the materials. So I showed a slide a couple of minutes ago that more so focused on men passing away from their work, and that was likely due to inhalation of the particles. And then another one is ingestion of contaminated dust, water, and food, such as from dust lead paint or drinking water that is transported through lead pipes, which is our primary focus. And then guidance or remediation, I'll touch a bit more on that towards the end of our slides, because our program does include a slight portion of remediation if there is lead in the pipes. So why is testing for lead in drinking water so important? Lead exposure can have a serious consequence for health in children, as we've mentioned many times before. Concentrations as low as 3.5 can decrease intelligence, causing learning disabilities and learning difficulties. Also, another thing that I think is pretty interesting and cool is the fact that we are testing in schools, and sometimes teachers and parents can notice their children being overly stimulated, having hyperactivity, not paying attention, and can contribute that to everything outside of testing for lead. You know, it could be something as simple as that. Sampling drinking water can help to identify the source of contamination, which is our goal, improve corrosion control treatment and help with remediation processes, and inform the public of exposure risks and reduce lead poisoning. All right, and so I'm going to show you guys a video, and then I'll go more into what we plan to do with our particular program. This video was really great. It's pretty much about 2 young boys who were exposed to lead at a very young age, and it shows the effects and impacts of their life today as adults.
The effects of lead on children in Flint will begin to reveal itself in toddlers quickly, but it will show up slower in older children.
Right, and lead is especially toxic to children under the age of 6. So what happens to kids who are exposed to high levels of it?
Our Mara McDonald is live tonight with 2 young men who had their lives irrevocably changed by this. Mara?
Guy, they really did. They were toddlers on the west side of the state back in the 90s. Their parents had no idea that there was lead paint in their homes and that their children were being poisoned. Take a look. Both David and Jerry were adorable little boys whose parents had no idea the lead paint in each of their homes was poisoning their children. David was found to have a level of 47, Jerry nearly 200, both horrifically high. And today,
my part in the day, I like be at school every day.
they have both suffered because of it. Both have developmental disabilities and cognitive problems. Jerry, who will be 21, has a job at a restaurant.
Cleaning, mopping floors, vacuum carpets.
He attends classes for developmentally disabled adults. David graduated from high school and now works with the developmentally disabled children. He'll tell you trying to focus is always hard.
I usually like to think like background music in my head to help focus, because the background music helps even more if you're wearing like headphones with music on.
There will be no college. He was diagnosed with ADHD, Tourette's, and Asperger's. Lead irrevocably changed their lives. Will it do the same for all the children exposed in Flint?
Unfortunately, we don't have an exact number at which we can say that kids are in big trouble. So we know that historically a level of about 10 is a level at which we sort of sound the alarms and get concerned about kids. But kids have done poorly with levels lower than 10, and kids have done great with levels much higher than 10.
Back here live, Dr. Faber says, though, that with younger children, this is going to be easier to see the effects of, if there are going to be negative effects. I mean, we're talking about children who, should be meeting milestones, and if they're not, that's an indicator that there's a real problem here. Guy, Kim, back to you.
Mara, does a doctor have any advice of what parents need to do at this point?
Number one, he says they've got to make sure that these children hit all their pediatrician's appointments, that they have to take advantage of all the services that the government is going to be providing in Flint. And Kim, I don't think we can say it enough. The CDC wants every child under the age of 6 tested for lead in Flint by April 1st. We are live in Corktown tonight. Mara McDonald, Local 4.
All right, thank you. The effects of
So again, sometimes we can see these different behaviors, these different outcomes, and we're not really sure where it's coming from. But I think it's very important to, like the woman said, visit your doctor's office, have your doctor tested for these things. That, you never know where it's coming from. I love this program because it's non-invasive. So when we're testing the water, we don't have to do we don't have to use stick and check their blood and things like that. We're literally just going in, protecting the water, and then we say, hey, we see that there's lead in the pipes or in the water or not, and then come up with a plan for remediation. Anyone want to share anything that they recognize with this from the video? I always like to have communication.
Be able to diagnose or label that as something else without knowing where it came from. Anyone else?
lead on children in Flint will begin to.
Okay, so we follow the EPA model. We follow the EPA model, 3T's model, for reducing lead in drinking water in schools and childcare facilities. So even if you are not familiar with any schools or childcare facilities in your area, if there is a space that you use where children primarily gather, then that can also be a place of testing. We also can provide testing at home daycares as well. So just keep that in mind. So our first process when it comes to our 3T's model is training. This is a form of training right now, bringing awareness. We can also provide that training directly on site at your facilities, within your community. We have resources such as brochures, different things of that nature. We have a website that you can actually click on that provides all of these details, these PowerPoints, and even further information about how to prevent lead exposure, as well as how to overcome it if you've already been exposed. The second step is testing, and I'm going to go deeper into each of these in a second, but the second step is testing. And within that testing, we will, like I said, come to your facility, we'll check the water, see if there's any lead in that water, and then we'll take action for our next step, which is some small remediation for now. We actually just found out that EPA will be putting out more funding for remediation, specific to remediation. And so we're looking forward to hearing exactly what that grant will look like so that we can apply for that. So that obviously, if you guys do have lead in your water, you won't shut the water systems off and have no other sources or outcomes for what to do next. Okay, so model one, developing a community plan. So our goal is to reach out to the community, as I mentioned before, communicate with you guys, make sure that the information that we're providing is accurate and honest, and it also is comprehensive to that specific community. As much as I love science and also math, I am more so, I don't know if layman's terms is the best way to put it, but I like to speak to people in a way that they understand. And this process is so simple, a child can literally go in and test that water. So it's like the training, I believe that children should be in the room, parents should be in the room, teachers should be in the room, you know, everyone, anyone who is going to be impacted by this, because this program is specific to childcare facilities and schools, but you can go to your home and still provide this, do this testing for yourself at a super simple rate. So speaking with a consistent voice, anticipate answering their questions, being positive and forthcoming. We love hearing any type of questions that you guys have for us, as far as what we plan on doing right now and what we plan on doing moving forward, how we can support you in moving through this program. And keeping the audience up to date with new information that may become available. So again, if you reach out to us and say, hey, we would love to receive more resources about lead testing, water sampling, things of that nature, our door or our email is always open for you to reach out. Model two is learning about the lead in drinking water. So health effects of lead exposure, sources of lead contamination, how lead gets into the drinking water, and how lead in drinking water is regulated, and then the facility and public water system relationship. So again, having that open line of communication, if you see things on this slide that you're like, oh, I would like to know more about that, we are able to connect you with the resources to provide that information to you. Model three is planning our activities program. So we've already done that for you essentially. Your goal is literally to come to us and say, hey, we would like to know more about the program. We would like to apply for the program. Even if you've had sampling before, even if your children have done the blood lead level sampling or testing before, this is completely different, and you want to be up to date and current on exactly what's schools at all times, information that you want record for yourself. So we'll be able to review your records and identify if sampling has been completed, establish that partnership with you guys, entities like public water systems, local health offices, tribal and state drinking water programs, certified labs, and local community organizations may be able to aid in testing drinking water for lead. One thing that we noticed when Ben and I first started, like I said, we started on the same day, and we were more so focused on the utility side, reaching out to like water and wastewater companies and organizations, things like that. And we realized that they weren't able to assist us with knowing where the actual schools were. So we kind of shifted gears a bit, and we said we're going to reach out to, you know, our behavioral health organizations. We want to reach out to schools. We want to reach out to health clinics and things of that nature. And I just want to shout out Brian over here, because he's been extremely helpful with just helping us to understand the direction to go. Honestly, all of THPS, the health department, or sorry, our health department, with knowing exactly where to go and who to reach out to and who to support with our program. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for doing that. Assigning roles. So it's important for us to identify key individuals who will be required to approve, support, or fund aspects of our program, and those who have a current job and roles and responsibilities that align with protecting the health of the schools or childcare facility population. So what that basically means is I'm the program manager of this program. So if you have any questions, you'll reach out to me. If I'm not able to answer it or give right back to you guys, then you can always reach out to Ben, who is our senior technical assistant specialist. And then we would love to have a tribal liaison. That's kind of what it's called within this module. And that's the person who will go in, complete the application. That'll be our main point of contact if we have questions and things like that, so that we can have that open relationship, but we can get this thing moving and there won't be much delay. We also have a great communications team who does our outreach. They may send you guys email blasts, post things on social media, update you on anything that's forthcoming, and in the future, we will have an app that will be uploading the data for any type of lead testing, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Developing a sampling plan. So once you complete your application, we'll have a meeting with you guys on Zoom or phone call, whichever works best. And we'll go through exactly what the day will look like when we come to the site. What I would like to do is come to site first, meet the community. If we do another training like this, that's perfectly okay. You know, parents, teachers, students would like to attend that training, we can do that as well. But that first day with the sampling plan, we're actually going to conduct a walkthrough. So that means we'll go to the school, to the childcare facility, to the daycare, and actually determine where the different water outlets are, and just mark them so that we know where we'll provide that sampling. Once we know where the locations are, we'll choose a sampling location based on the questionnaire and the knowledge of the buildings. We'll select a laboratory for sampling analysis, which we've already done. We're actually completing our contract for our lab right now. They're APA certified. We'll have all of you guys' data stored securely, and we'll be determine a sampling frequency. So sampling will be dependent on a variety of factors, including plumbing, water quality, initial sample results, and budget, and competing priorities. And then understanding sampling procedures. So we'll determine who should collect samples, recommend sample volume, and type of samples to collect. Which essentially means we'll come in, it's literally a super simple process. We'll only need to sample once unless Ben or anyone else sees that we need to do multiple samples. And we can also show you how to do that in case that something comes up and we need you guys to do another sample while we're not on site. Okay. So we're in the testing phase now, just so you guys know. So we're on site, we're doing the testing, and we're conducting sampling and interpretation of results. So again, the sampling process is super simple. We can do that sampling for you. If you want to know how to do it, we would advise you to come with us. We're doing a walkthrough and as we do the sampling process to show you exactly how to do it. I actually have a cute video at the end that will show you how to sample water as well. And that video will be on our website as well as on I think it'll be on that resource center that on the USET app. But the sampling process is super simple. We'll use a 250 milliliter per straw sample. And the representative of water will be consumed at the beginning of the day. We'll have a follow-up flush sample. And this sample is used to better determine where the contamination is occurring. Conducting sampling and interpretation of results. So some things that we want to do is follow the instructions provided by the lab for handling samples. Our lab has been super responsive. We have a very great relationship with them. We're actually meeting with them in a couple of days just to do a quick follow-up on Zoom. Assign a unique sample ID to each sample, which is nothing you would need to worry about because we're going to take care of all that for you. Collect samples before facility opens and before any water is used, which is super important. So if your school is closed during like the winter months for like winter holiday or the summer months for summer school or summer holiday, we wouldn't provide sampling during that time. But we would only focus on sampling during like the school years, or again, if we're sampling at a recreational center, that would need to be a center that's used quite often so that we can make sure that the water is actually being used. We can get a great reading. And then learn how water flows in the facility being sampled. Some things that we don't want to do is remove irritators prior to sampling, flush water prior to sampling, or close or shut off valves to prevent use prior to sampling. And so that kind of goes back to why we want to make sure that the building is being used quite often and kids are in school during that time so we can get the best data reports. All right, next is taking action. So remediation and establishing routine practices. The immediate response can be to shut off the problem outlets. If the sample results for the outlet exceeds remediation levels. And once again, like I said, we will reach out to you guys and let you know if there's any lead. We have about a 30-day window. We'll let you guys know after we provide that sampling, and we'll also upload it on our app called Travel First. We're developing that app, and all the code is very secure. They're gonna log in, name, you'll create your own password, and only the person who creates it and anyone that you choose to share it with will have access to that data, no one else. So we'll upload the test result there, and then we'll meet with you, let you know, hey, we have these data reports, you're welcome to share with your community, because we think that it's important for them to know that there is lead exposure in the community, and we'll move forward with these action steps. We'll share the results with you'll share the results with your staff, parents, and students, discuss the current and future actions, post signage that will notify people to not use those water outlets, and increase awareness and public education. And we have resources, we have printouts, we have things like that to send over to you so that you can use if you don't have access to print it out yourself. Short-term control measures. So we'll provide filters at the problem tab. And commercially available flush taps prior to use. Use suckers that notify staff to use. Provide hot water if needed. I spoke with someone the other day, and they told me that they have like an emergency response collection where they have pallets of cases of water in case the water systems, something happened with the water system. So if you did not have something like that, we can come up with a plan to support you with water until we have another remediation plan. EPA recommends to request a ready statement from the bottled water distributor that guarantees the water quality meets the FDA and state standards. And then permanent control measures. So replacement of the problem outlets. This is something that will go more so in our remediation process, but this is a plan that we would like to discuss with you if we see that there is lead in the water. Pipe replacement, lead pipes and service lines can be replaced, provide problem taps, using certified point of use. This can be a permanent control measure, which is a schedule that ensures regular maintenance, and then reconfiguring plumbing, which is modifying a facility system to bypass sources of information. And then follow-up sampling. So once we remediated, then we would begin implementation of additional follow-up procedures. We will coordinate with plumbers and maintenance staff to ensure that additional samples can be taken at the outlets that were impacted by replacement of fixtures, reconfiguration of plumbing, and other remediation actions. And again, this is the taking action piece is a part of the plan. So I'm sharing these things with you guys. And like I said, we have this information on our website, but we want you guys to come with us and share. Hey, here's what we would like to do. Is to obviously have that coming and we just EPA and say this is comparing the original and additional samples with others. So, comparing the original and additional samples will help successful mediation is successful. That is awesome. Follow-up sampling when flushing is used. So follow-up sampling leadership who's sampling the effectiveness of procedures at each outlet. If the 30-second flush sample is low, flushing for 30 seconds may be sufficient, and in some cases, the flushing duration may need to be better determined. After determining the required flushing duration, repeat the sampling process by collecting that was collected after flushing, followed by a period of normal water use at the fixture to determine whether flushing daily, twice daily, or at different frequencies is needed to ensure that levels remain low throughout the day. And again, this is nothing that you would necessarily need to do because we would be here to support you in doing that. But if you want to come with us and do it, you are more than welcome to. Considerations for replacement activities, this is just more ideas. Ensure that anyone who replaces or repairs any part of the plumbing systems only uses lead solders or other materials. Electrical currents can accelerate the growth. And by sharing communication plans, sharing it with our properties, sharing it with the schools, sharing it with parents, because we don't want to come in and say, okay, we're here to do this for you, we're gonna do it the way that we want to. We want to do it in the best way to support the community and the community moves. Maintain remediation records, schedule for maintenance, and anyone that assisted in. And then clean. Drinking water can, fountains can. Clean drinking water fountains regularly. Create a maintenance schedule that ensures regular accelerated water fountains during their cleaning and keep records. Set reminders on the calendar for maintenance staff so that cleaning, the aerator, water fountain happens in a consistent manner. And again, this is a plan that we would assist you with coming up with, and all you need to do is follow that. Temperature control. Only use cold water for food preparation. Hot water will be dissolved in lead more quickly than cold water, which can increase the lead levels. Heat water on the stove or microwave if water is needed, and do not use it from the tap. And post signs and notices in food preparation areas so that students and staff will be reminded to only use cold water. So these are pretty simple control measures, and this will be again a part of the resources that we will provide for you guys if there is any lead exposure. Okay. Cross connectors control. So evaluate each facility for the presence of cross connections of non portable water to potable sources, and address any issues. And then communication, create and post place cards near fixtures where water should be not be consumed. Use pictures if there are small children using the bathrooms or fountains, and consider organizing engagement for the community to explain to everyone how this can help. So again, our goal is to get to kind of do that at the front end, but we can do a closeout event as well if you want us to come back into the community. But I think it's super important to educate the children as well, because they are more at high risk. And I know when I was younger, like seeing these different like ads on PBS and things like that, it made it not so scary and it made it more real life. And I honestly feel like that's kind of why I'm here today. Is like, it was like, oh, it's on TV, it sounds cool, like I want to help them save the world type of thing. But you just never know how those children can have that conversation with their parents and have that conversation with their teachers and things like that to say, hey, I want to help get us clean water as well. So I really love the fact that we are in the school systems educating with lead exposure. We already went to this routine flushing practices. So regularly flush out water outlets using weekend vacations, and then and when water may have been stagnant for a long period of time. Again, this is more so a taking action. So after we found that flushing involves opening valves, faucets to remove the water, and then standing in material types of outlets. Flushing too many outlets this large evidence that might create further problems or reduce pressure in the systems below safe levels. If the flow from the outlets is noticeably reduced, too many outlets have been turned on outlets. So again, this is just something to be mindful of, like in the after effects. This is nothing to really be mindful of. It's very, I think it's very cool to know that we just need to continue flushing until you see the results that we need to see. Flushing, okay, keeping records. This is probably one of the most important. It is important to keep an ongoing record of partners, team contracts, testing efforts, remediation efforts, public outreach, and communication activities. And this is more so something we would need to do and that we plan to do. And if you ever want to know, hey, can you send those records over? We're more than welcome to share with you guys, and we'll likely keep an ongoing file so that you have access to it as well as the tribal liaison. Keep copies of past communication materials and dates that were sent out. It's imperative to be able to approve steps were taken to inform the public on lead issues. Strong record keeping can also prove to be helpful in illustrating what steps you've taken to notify the public of testing efforts and results. To me, this is something that's just kind of a need to know. What we've done is created a communication strategy, and we tracking like what's working the best. So we're sending out email blasts. We're sending out posts on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and somewhere else. And then we're also sending out emails directly, not only at USET, but we're sending those emails out externally. So if you're on our email list, we're sending that information directly to you. And then we're tracking through our webinars, through these events, to see what is reaching you guys the most, what you're most interested in, and where we're getting our applicants from, or our participants. Record keeping is so important for taking action portion of the program by documenting the outreach and the public's response, and you can learn how to improve your public communication plan. And so this is the final video that I have here. I really love this video because it shows exactly how to sample for water and why it's so important. And I'm sure you guys, if you just listening to what I've said, it almost just reiterates everything that I've just mentioned.
Welcome to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's 3Ts lead sample collection video. This video expands upon materials developed in support of EPA's 3Ts program to reduce lead in drinking water in schools and childcare facilities through training, testing, and taking action. This video will show how you can identify sources of lead in drinking water at a school or childcare facility. We will walk through, step by step, how to sample for lead throughout your facility to help keep your school or childcare community safe and informed. For more details on each of the steps covered in this video, see the EPA 3Ts lead sampling field guide at www.epa.gov/safewater/3Ts. Lead in drinking water most often results from corroded plumbing materials that contain lead. Children are most susceptible to the effects of lead because their bodies are still developing. Therefore, they tend to absorb more lead than adults. In children, lead exposure can cause adverse health effects both physical and behavioral, including impaired growth, reduced attention span, hyperactivity, and learning disabilities. There is no safe blood lead level for children. The best way to know if there is lead in drinking water is to test for it. That's where you can help. Step 1. Find a certified laboratory. If you are served by a water utility, they may test for lead in your drinking water upon request. Otherwise, contact a state-certified lab. The lab will either collect your drinking water samples for you or send you the materials to collect them yourself and ship them back. If you need help finding a certified lab, the EPA 3Ts lead sampling field guide can provide helpful direction and is located on the EPA 3Ts website. Step 2. Prioritize your fixtures. Once you have found your state-certified lab, you need to identify what fixtures you want to sample, prioritizing ones that are actively used for drinking and cooking. A fixture can include drinking water fountains, kitchen sinks, ice-making machines, classroom combination sinks, nurse's office sinks, or any other sink known to be used for human consumption. Step 3. Create a coding system. To prepare for sample collection, develop an easy-to-read coding system to create individual sample IDs, which can include the floor number, room number, outlet type or name, and the sample number. This will allow you to easily identify your specific sampling location and properly label your sample bottles so that the lab knows the exact fixtures the samples were taken from, as well as the type of sampling that was conducted. The EPA 3Ts data e-trackers, shown here, can assist with tracking and documenting sampling results and any actions you take if lead is detected. These can be accessed by visiting the EPA 3Ts website. Step 4. Prepare for testing. The night before sampling, post signs around your school so that others do not use the water before or during your sampling time, and be sure to label your sample containers with the sample ID. You should also gather the following materials: a pencil, a notepad, a stopwatch, sample containers, your sampling form, disposable plastic gloves, and a labeled map of the plumbing system. Other optional items that may be helpful include hand wipes or bottled water to wash your hands with. This video will demonstrate the two types of samples, a first draw sample and a flush sample. A first draw sample collects water from the fixture and its parts, shown here in blue. These results will indicate if the fixture is a source of lead in your water. A flush sample collects water from further behind the fixture, shown here in orange. Samples are taken in predetermined lengths of time after the water has been flowing out of the fixture. These results will indicate if the pipes behind the fixtures are a source of lead in the water. A flush sample is normally collected if your first draw sample has lead levels at the fixture. However, flush samples may be taken the same day as the first draw samples to reduce costs. Step 5. Collect your sample. To conduct a first draw sample, water should be sitting in the pipes for at least 8 hours, but for no more than 18 hours prior to sampling. These samples are typically collected in the morning, before the facility opens and before the fixtures have been used. When taking a first draw sample, do not flush the fixture by running the water before collecting your sample. The first draw sample is collected immediately upon turning on the water. To do this, place the container under the fixture or faucet and then turn the water on. Fill the 250 milliliter container to the top, but do not allow the water to overflow. Secure the lid on the container and set it aside. Be sure to record any observations in your sampling form. For example, was the faucet leaking? Was there any water discoloration? Did you notice a change in water pressure? The flush sample is also collected in the morning before a facility opens and before any significant water is used. Using a stopwatch, let the water run steadily, commonly for 30 seconds. Then fill the 250 milliliter container to the top with water. Secure the lid on the container and prepare for shipping. Step 6. Pack and ship your materials. Once you have collected all of your samples, you should follow the instructions from the lab to pack and ship the samples as soon as possible. Waiting too long could lead to problems that require resampling. Ensure that your samples have been properly labeled and that they are securely packed in the shipping container. Most labs will require you to complete a chain of custody form to ensure the contents of your samples are safely received by the appropriate entity. This form will typically include the date, time, location, type, and ID of the samples you are sending to the lab. The last steps are to take action and communicate. If lead is detected in your samples, EPA recommends taking action. Action may include posting a sign at the fixture to inform that lead was found, installing filters, implementing routine flushing, or removing or replacing the fixtures. You should also reach out to your public water system and use the EPA 3T's lead sampling field guide to help you determine your short-term and/or long-term actions you can take to reduce lead levels. The guide is located on the EPA 3T's website. When you receive your results, share them with your community, including parents, students, staff, and anyone else that might use the building. Use the customizable EPA 3T's letter template to share results and actions with your community. By watching this video, you've taken the first step in protecting children from lead exposure in drinking water. Now you are ready to begin the 3T steps of training, testing, and taking action. For more details on testing, please review the EPA 3T's lead sampling field guide and other resources on EPA's 3T's website. Thanks for watching.
Like I mentioned, we will have this slideshow, resources, data such as that on our website. On the next slide, there will be a QR code you can scan to get direct access to our website. But I really love this video because I feel like it's super simple and easy to understand literally everything I just said in like a 5-minute video. So simple that you can even show it to a child, like elementary school child. So one other thing that I wanted to show you guys and just share with you is a few numbers. So keeping in mind when it comes to taking action, what type of plan that you would like to follow if there is lead in the water system. I think that is the most important, is having those small conversations with the parents and whoever is leading the school system and things like that to understand what is the best method for you guys and what will work best for you guys, so that when we start to apply for this grant and start writing our work plan, we can already have you in mind, and it won't be something where we're doing the work and trying to decide how we want to go and do it, but we're supporting you in doing this the way that you would like to see it done. So I want to share a couple of numbers with you, because we already saw the 2 videos. I think their names were Jerry and David, and their impacts from the lead exposure. But we just have a little bit of data here from blood lead level data back a few years ago. USET actually tested about 5,000 children ages 0 to 16, and out of those out of those children, 4% showed elevated blood levels. Now again, testing back in 2022, about the same number, 5,000. Out of those 5,000, there was a 21% increase of elevated blood levels. So I'm not sure if the same children were tested. This is throughout various tribal nations. So this number is combined, but to me, just knowing that out of 5,000 children, there was a 21% increase of elevated blood levels, I think that's insane. I mean, I like said I have a 2-year-old, so I just think about, you know, what if she were one of those people? 5,000 is a lot of children. So anyhow, I want to share that real life data with you, just to think to yourself, are any of those children in my community? You know, do I know any of those children? And then what can I do to support them? Can I plug them into this training and at least let their parents know that there is this, there is lead exposure, water sampling out here? Can I just educate them a little bit more? Like, what can I do? So you guys are all in this room, so we all play a part in supporting our communities to some extent. And I want to empower you and encourage you to do your best to uplift our community as best as possible. Next up, I think that's it. Okay, these are our references. So thank you to USDA and EPA for allowing us to do this program, as well as share this presentation with you guys. And here are the QR codes that I mentioned before. The first one gives you access to our lead testing application. It's a very simple application that you can complete on your computer and even on your phone as well. And that can be completed by the tribal liaison, or if you wanted to complete it, if you know of schools that and have that much information about them, you can do so. We're hoping to begin testing this fall, and we'll be testing throughout until the end of next year. And then the other QR code is for our LEV program webpage, which gives you access to more information about our program. It gives you access to the videos, any type of up-to-date resources that we post, such as preventative measures and things like that. And then we do have a webinar on August 8th. So if you go to the USET website, uset8.org, and you go to the calendar, you can register for our webinar. We'll pretty much be going more in detail with the slideshow just like this, but again, if you know parents, students, teachers, any other people within the community who may be interested in learning more about our program, they can tune into this webinar on August 8th. And then here's our contact information for myself and Lynn. And that's all we have. Yeah, go back. So you guys can take a picture of that. That's all. Any other questions? Yes.
So during remediation, when you're positive for positive for lead drinking water, and you're going to the sites and you're doing the testing, is there funds available for remediation for those areas, like pipe removal and, you know, plumbing, or is that part of that, or is that something separate that we have to find the funds for?
So I'm not 100% sure what all is included within the remediation funding. The funding has actually not come out yet, but we've been having conversations with EPA, and they share that there will be funding available as of the end of the summer, and they'll be able to tell us exactly what's included in the remediation process. But one thing that we do know for sure is that there is remediation funding coming, which is great. Mm-hmm. And about a week ago, they announced more funding for lead testing as well, which we hope to apply for. So as of now, obviously, we have the testing that goes through the end of the year, but we're planning on applying for more. But great question. And again, like I said, if you have an idea of what type of remediation you would like to see within your schools, we can include that in our work plan so that we can operate and support you with that. Great question. Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.